Hey dudes, it's Larold. Over the past month or so, we've gotten a lot of comments saying that Ritual is good, you've got to do Ritual, Ritual prints Divines, and so on. So I took the bait and I set up and ran 69 Ritual maps yesterday to see how good it actually is. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. So right, why 69 maps? I think the biggest thing I found difficult to nail down about PoE 2's in-game farming and making videos about it is the number of maps to run. Well, I think that might be the second hardest thing. I think the number one hardest thing would be buying the tablets to do them, which is just a completely different chore. Quite a difficult task. But in PoE 1, I used to just run sets of 28 maps because that's the amount required to farm an in-game boss key, and, then that key lost a lot of value in the past couple of leagues, but at least before that change, that was how I did it. Very easy to kind of, think about that. Okay, also, I'm just adding this in as I'm going through the edit and kind of looking at a lot of footage. Flicker Strike annihilates Ritual. It's so good. And I put together a build of like a video on making this build from 0 to hero, level 1 to 100 on Monday of this week. So go check that out too if you wanna do this. So it could just run 100 maps. I mean, that's a pretty normal amount. It's good for SEO, right? You see a 100 map ritual test in the title and you say, interesting, and then you click on the video. I mean, I would. And the same kind of goes for 50. It's faster, it's half as much time spent, half as much data, not quite as interesting, but the same basic idea. But then I started trying to buy tablets for this farm strategy, and it was a real pain. It took a really long time to find people who understood that I wanted to buy all of their tablets despite the fact that they were listed in bulk and I was using the bulk selling tool on the trade site. I just kept getting sold one tablet at a time when I'd say I would like to buy all 10. So after about 20 or 30 minutes of this, I decided to just go with what I had, which was 10 total tablets between what I'd managed to buy one at a time and what I already had in my stash. So I just counted up the number of maps that the tablets would affect, and that number was 69. Nice. It seemed predestined by the stars that this is the way I would do it, and that's probably the way I'm going to do every single farm strategy going forward. I add up the number of maps affected by the tablets. There you go. That's the number of maps I'm doing. All right, so big question here. Is Ritual good? I'm going to kind of start with the conclusion. I think it is good. It's inconsistent. It's actually very inconsistent, but it's also quick. And I think that's a big part of the appeal. It's the single most slot machine-y mechanic in PoE 2 right now, and there's something very satisfying about that. It's low effort, but inconsistently high reward. It's not really the farm strategy I would recommend as your core, your foundation for getting started with currency generation. If we had a new league reset, I wouldn't be starting with Ritual, but it is a really fun change of pace once you've already got a good bit of currency built up and you're maybe a little bored with doing Breach and clicking a million splinters in every map. Now, maybe over a long enough timeline, Ritual is actually better than everything else. I don't know. What I do know is that I spent, I think, the first 45 or 46 maps without seeing a King of the Mist key, and then I saw 2 of them in the span of 4 maps, and that felt pretty good. It was a big dopamine hit. All right, now let's go ahead and get into the map setup, and to kind of lay that out, I came into this valley here, this area here, with all of these overlapping towers. Obviously, this is more than 10 towers. I didn't use Ritual in every single one of these towers. I came into this area here, and I saw all these wonderful maps and a lot of overlapping crisscrossing towers, and I used them, mostly these over here, and then some of these over here were more for just setting up kind of a regular irradiated tablets with quantity on them. But I set up Ritual across as many maps as I could, 69 maps in this area. I ran that number of maps and counted all the currency and valuable items I found along the way. The entire time I spent on this strategy, including setup and stopping to take notes and all, was around 4.5 to 5 hours, just like with the expedition strategy, but across more maps. So it was definitely faster on a time per map basis. And part of that is that I didn't put Breach tablets into any of these secondary areas. There were some maps that already had Breach on them. There were some that already had Ritual on them for what it's worth. But, that's fine. I just put basic tablets with item quantity into everything that I didn't put Ritual into, and so that did make it a little bit faster. I think 4 minutes a map is a fairly conservative estimate, but once again, your mileage is going to vary based on your build and, whatever else, if you're running Delirium on the maps, for example. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some Ritual tablet mods now here as well. So there are a lot of good suffix mods on Ritual tablets. There are some that kind of stink, but this one in particular, Ritual favors in your maps. have an increased chance to contain omens. This is really good. Omens are the main valuable thing that you get out of Ritual, and so having that chance for them to show up be higher is just, I mean, it's obviously good. If you're able to get a lot of overlap on this, that's great. Another one that's really good in here is just this one, just a set rerolling of favors an extra time. That's potentially very good. It does add up in terms of cost. You know, if you're running a kind of normal Atlas setup, it's going to be $750 per ritual reroll, and you'll have 2 rerolls, so that's 1,500 favor that you're expecting to spend on rerolls, and then this would bump it up to 2,250, which is quite a bit. However, you're able to kind of offset that by a combination of like this one that gives you increased tribute. That's good, you know, more tribute for rerolls, or this one I think really works even better, especially considering it's a larger number, you know, better potential for scaling here. Just simply rerolling costing less. You can get your rerolls down to, if you have a couple of these overlapping in an area, I had rerolls that were in the like 300 range, so it would be like 3 rerolls with this and the rerolling an extra time. You know, 3 rerolls might only cost like 1,100 or something, 1,200. That's very manageable and gives you plenty left over to buy or defer any valuable items that come across your way. A lot of these other ones can be much more situational, things like favors deferred, reappearing sooner if you have some very high value item. You know, you got lucky and you found a mirror or something in there, you know, maybe trying to juice some of these so that you can like continue to find them, and then deferring favors costing less. Like that's something, but definitely not as consistently valuable. And then some of these like favors having a chance to cost no tribute, it's a nice concept, but the chance is so low that I think it's really not very good. You could hit every single map in the area and not, on average, you wouldn't even get this, right? If this was a 10 maps with a 3% chance to cost no tribute, that still means you're probably not gonna get it on average. So not great. And then these other ones, a chance to be magic, chance to be rare, kind of inconsistent again, like, you know, potentially good, but like a bit more of a gamble type of deal. It is a gamble strategy, so like whatever. Now, one big difference in your maps and in your tablets with Ritual as opposed to every other League mechanic is that quantity and rarity doesn't affect the stuff that shows up in the table when you open up the window at the end of doing a Ritual. Quantity and rarity aren't going to scale that at all. Actually, pack size and like more rare monsters are actually better modifiers for running Ritual, just so that you can have more favor to spend on the things in that window. But the problem is, of course, quantity and rarity are still going to be good for the rest of the map. So I still ran quantity and rarity, and all of my maps, I think I've burned through every single one of my high quant. Here we go. Here is one that has delirium stuff on it, which I didn't run any delirious maps, but this would be like an example of a map I would try to run for all of this. Every single map in this strategy, I was trying to run maps that had quantity and rarity. You know, pretty basic, just trying to get as many divines as I could from the monsters in the maps. I think if I really wanted to juice this as hard as I possibly could, I would maybe look for ones that have, you know, mods more like this, like increased magic pack size or number of magic monsters, or just this. This is a great example, actually, pack size. I would want to run them at least tier 15. Ideally, you know, you can get away with doing a tier 14, but higher tier is gonna potentially be better. More monsters, higher level monsters, more ritual favor, all of that. All right, now let's take a look at the passive tree. So we're running exactly the same standard passive tree as before. The only thing I swapped over is I dropped local knowledge because I wasn't really doing a ton of swamp and water biome maps, at least as far as I could tell. And I took precursor influence just to get more tablets. Ritual tablets are very expensive, so I thought maybe this would help with getting more. Honestly, I don't know if it did or not. You know, it would take a lot of map running, you know, testing to be able to tell whether precursor influence really has a big value add or if it only applies to regular precursor tablets. You know, who can say? As for the ritual passives, you know, you definitely want to take ominous portents. You get the monsters spawning faster, which makes the rituals faster, which is good. You have a higher chance to have omens. That's also very good. He approaches is really the huge thing here. Much higher chance to get the audience with the king. That is kind of the big, on average, the biggest like value add of running ritual is getting those keys. And, you know, then increased chance for monsters to be higher rarity tier. That's good. More favor, more reward from them. So obviously you're going to take these two in any strategy you run, of course. And then also because Ritual is very much just about flipping through pages and just trying to find something useful that isn't like garbage gear, Tempting Offers is also kind of mandatory as well. You get an extra reroll, and your rerolls cost less, and this stacks with reduced reroll cost from tablets, so very, very, very good as well. Then you kind of have like an option for your fourth pair of points. You can do Promise Devotion. I think this one's clearly the worst one. Favors Deferred reappear sooner. That's like okay if you have something like a mirror or something that you're trying to get. Like I could see speccing into this briefly for that. But deferring costing reduced tribute, this only reduces the cost of the 5% penalty for deferring an item. So it makes it so that it costs 2.5% as a tax to defer things, which is not very good. So this is definitely the worst one. And then your options are either Spreading Darkness, which means that I think it's about a 50-50 chance of either 3 Ritual Altars or 4 Ritual Altars. It'll just be a 100% chance to be 4 Ritual Altars, except on, I believe it's Burial Bog has a bug where sometimes you'll only get 3 or even sometimes 2 Ritual Altars. I did not run into that issue, thankfully, but I have heard from other people that it's a pretty irritating problem. So having 4 Ritual Altars, you know, I've seen a lot of people say that you shouldn't take this and that you should take From the Mists instead. I did play around with From the Mists for the first like 20 maps or so. I think it's bait, actually, and the reason is if you only get 3 Ritual Altars in your map, then your chances of having enough favor to be able to flip through multiple pages, through 3 pages, and then actually be able to reserve something at the end of that 3rd page, if it was like a King of the Mist key or something, is very, very low. You have to get about like 2,500 favor or so in order to be able to do 2 flips, and then also still reserve something on page number 3. And that's really easy to do. If you take Spreading Darkness, you basically always get like 2,500 to 3k favor every single time. And that just simply isn't true with From the Mists. From the Mist just adds 2 packs of monsters onto your rituals, which sounds good, but they're not magic packs or rare packs, necessarily. You know, if you were to do some sort of other juicing, like juice the amount of rare monsters through Delirium and have rare monsters and maybe pack size as a prefix on every single map, I think From the Mist maybe could be better, but it's a bit more of a gamble where sometimes you're going to roll low and sometimes you're going to roll high. And the thing about Ritual is it's really more about consistency in this one aspect of doing it, where you always want to be able to flip through as many pages as you possibly can on every single map. Because if you have a map where you only flip through 2 pages and there's nothing valuable on them, that was basically an entirely wasted map, and that could be true if you flip through 3 pages and there's nothing useful on, but you are essentially wasting a full page. There were so many maps where I hit the end of flipping through 3 pages and I had 2,200 ritual favor left over and nothing worth buying, and From the Mist kind of just accentuates that even further. It just makes it so there will be even more maps where you'll have 3k ritual favor left over at the end of the final page, and then also more maps where you are not even able to do 3 pages. So I think From the Mist is worse. You know, your mileage may vary, but I think Spreading Darkness is better because it is more consistent for being able to flip through pages and try and fish for as many of the King and the Mist keys as possible. I know people will disagree about this. That's okay. I think Spreading Darkness is better, though. I think From the Mist is not bait, but not as good. All right, so I'm going to run a map and just talk about Ritual in the map a little bit here. And, you know, when you run Ritual on a map, it'll spawn packs of monsters near each of the Ritual sites. And then when you kill those monsters, their blood pours into the Ritual totems. You click the totems. They all respawn, along with any monsters you've killed at any other Ritual sites, and you kill them all, and then you get points out of the deal. Favor, I believe it's called. Now, one important note on that is that killing monsters, or like dragging monsters that weren't part of the Ritual spawn over to the Ritual, that won't do anything, that won't help at all, just kind of waste your time. All right, here we go. First Ritual. Didn't feel like there were a lot of monsters at this Ritual site, so this is probably going to be pretty quick, but let's go ahead and pop it. And, you know, there'll always be some sort of obstacle at the Ritual to deal with. Usually they're pretty small. This was like a tornado of rats. Most of them don't really do much. And then there's the volatile pods one, which is pretty brutal. Now, something I've noticed with a lot of maps is Ritual site size can be wildly different. Okay, nice. Why did that happen during the 69 map test, right? Anyways, something I've noticed with a lot of Rituals is I feel like the sizes can be very different. I've had some that feel like they're almost completely off the screen. Some feel like they're very, very narrow. Maybe this is like more of a map size thing. I don't know. I've just noticed that Some rituals seem to be much larger and more like whatever, more cramped than others. All right, here we have ritual number 3. And, just killing everything off quickly. One little tip here is I do like to clear the area around a ritual just a little bit, just so that you don't, like, get off-screened by some stupid crossbow guy or a caster or something. Just kind of clear around the ritual a little bit, since you're not able to leave the area where the ritual is taking place. All right, that ought to do it. Let's hit this ritual site, and then we'll be on our final ritual of the map. See what we can get out of the window. All right, so 4 rituals down, 3,300 honor or valor or favor or whatever it is. That ought to be enough to buy something valuable. So I open up the tab here, and I don't even waste time looking at gear, pretty much. Just I open it up, I see just very low value currency, and I re-roll. And, then I check. So some of the omens can be worth quite a bit. Some of them are not worth much at all. Adding prefix modifiers is really good for maps, I guess. It can be good for a lot of purposes, I suppose. But a lot of these suffix modifier omens are very low value. So that one's worth less than an exalt. Anything that's worth an exalt or less, I don't bother deferring or buying or anything like that. I'm just saving for the final page. In the hopes that I get something valuable out of the final page, a King of the Mist key or a valuable omen or something like that. Okay, and this was actually a pretty good representative sample of ritual here. I got garbage. I got nothing of value on any of the pages. Total waste of time to do this ritual. And yeah, that's actually kind of a good example here. Now, if there were something valuable, I would have kind of shown off a little bit about deferring. The thing about deferring is we could still show it off. Deferring has, it costs 10% of the item's buy price, and then there's also a small tax as well, 5% tax, which I think I might have a bonus on this area for reduced deferral costs or something. Yeah, deferring costs, reduced tribute. So that's why these numbers aren't quite lining up. But there's 10% upfront payment and then 5% deferral fee. And that, that can stack over multiple deferrals through multiple windows, multiple rituals, whatever, but it locks it in to be available for later. I think if I had to point to a thing that I've always disliked about ritual is this weird window. It's like synthetic. It's non-diegetic. It's not a standard gameplay experience that lines up with anything else that you do in PoE. And it's very weird. I feel like I must just be crazy because not only have GGG never seen this window as a problem, they've actually doubled down on it by bringing it forward into PoE 2. So in terms of choosing whether to buy items immediately or defer them for later, I think it's usually a good idea to buy an item immediately if you're able. If this was a level 20 spirit gem instead of a level 18, I would want to buy it, right? The only reason I wouldn't buy something is if I want to re-roll my rewards for a chance at something better on a page, the next page. Let's say I had more re-rolls, and I was worried that if I bought the gem and re-rolled and something good showed up like a King of the Mist key, I wouldn't be able to defer that King of the Mist key. So if I weren't on my last re-roll here and this was a level 20, I would probably defer it and re-roll in the hopes that I would either see it again or see a King of the Mist key or something like that. But a lot of the time, it's kind of not a bad idea to just go ahead and get that cash in hand, since you are paying a 5% tax every time. So most of the time, you're just this is a great example, right? You're going to have nothing of value available. You'll want to just re-roll all the way through. That is how I structure most of the setup in the passive tree, just trying to flip through as many pages as possible in the hopes of finding high value items and locking them in for later. I can at least feel nice that I got a divine orb out of this map. That's neat. The game knew that I was recording, so it turned on the streamer client for me, passively in the background. All right, now that that is done, let's go ahead and jump into the results, the currency that I made over the course of 69 maps. And so I have my costs here, 69 maps. I hand-rolled all of these. These were all self-farmed. I would just counted them, once again, as 3 exalts. I think that's low estimate, but fine, right? I paid about 80 exalts for each of the ritual tablets, which is definitely my least favorite part of this whole situation. And then I had a couple of rando tablets. I think it actually wound up being more like 5 rando tablets, but they were all just self-found random quantity irradiated tablets, nothing special at all. So, 1 exalt each, I'm fine with that. Just to kind of show off my in-game tab here, instead of just simply the spreadsheet, this is what it looks like. You know, ton of exalted orbs found throughout the maps. A lot of different types of omens, 3 ameliorations, 11 sinistral alchemy, 15 resurgence, 5 sinistral exaltation, 5 omens of corruption, 2 greater annuls, 2 audiences with the king, 1 omen of whittling. This was definitely the most valuable item I found. Once again, 4 white stellar amulets, kind of nice. I did run into expedition and breach a little bit along the way. I also ran into some delirium mirrors. I didn't count any of that. So I got 1 expedition logbook and 20 coins. I got a breach stone, about 115 splinter, 114 splinters, 13 adaptive catalysts, a couple of expedition tablets, a couple of really well-rolled boss tablets, 10, actually more than 10 breach tablets. I started putting them in here, and then I realized I hadn't counted which ones were just already in here and which ones had dropped, so I just stuck all the rest of them once I realized that I wasn't paying attention to that in here. So we're calling it 10 breach tablets, even though it's definitely, it's somewhere between like 11 and 14, 11 and 15, but I'm not exactly sure, so just round down, that's fine. 5 divines, 4 nulls, you know, some hand, like, I did get a perfect jeweler's orb. That was pretty cool. That was like, you know, another kind of big hit. And then 7 ritual tablets, which some of these have very good rolls. You know, the number of maps that are affected by the ritual altar does dictate the value that you're able to sell the tablet for. So I got 4 10s, which that's great. Those are worth like divines, not exalts. And then a 9, a 6, and a 5. So I actually did come out ahead if I were to go price these for what they're actually worth, if I were to go sell them. But I just counted these as like the same price that I paid for ritual tablets, which most of the ritual tablets I bought were like 5s or 6s or so. You know, whatever. That's fine. I'm willing to round down a little bit. And yeah, I added all of this up, calculated all the prices through Alva, and you know, what I came up with was about 9,688 exalts made in total. As usual, your prices may vary. Prices are going to fluctuate over time. That's how it works. So, you know, don't get upset if they do. Somebody always does. So I didn't actually make as much currency per hour as I did with Expedition, about 6.5 divines per hour, despite the maps being faster, as opposed to like 8.5 divines per hour with Expedition. I was a little disappointed by that. Also, the cost was way higher. You know, I paid 20 exalts a piece for the Expedition tablets, and I paid 80 for the ritual tablets, so I'm not worried about ROI, right? Like, this isn't a business. I'm not worried about the cost to profit ratio, but it is kind of surprising that I've spent more than double per map, you know, closer to 15 exalts per map as opposed to 7 per map before, and then I made less per map. I made 2/3 of a divine per map running Expedition, and I made a little under half a divine per map running ritual. Now maybe I had a really long dry streak. Like I said, it took me over 45 maps to find a King of the Mist key. Maybe unlucky. I don't know. Maybe sometimes lucky, maybe sometimes unlucky. Who can really say? What I do know is that I still like enjoyed myself, even though I made less currency than Expedition. I still feel like this was a pretty satisfying haul, and there were a lot of like kind of interstitial drops along the way as well. Things like an Omen of Corruption where you're like, oh, nice, you know, half or 2/3 of a divine. Like, that's pretty cool. And I saw 5 of these. Like, that's not bad. You know, I thought that was pretty good. I think the biggest complaint I would maybe have is I like how quick the rituals are. I really do. I don't think I got a single valuable currency item. Like, I didn't get any of these Jeweler's Orbs or the Divines or the Annuls or any of this. None of this, other than maybe some Chaos Orbs, came from the ritual window, but none of it came from the ritual drops, like completing the ritual and then stuff drops from it. I never got anything more valuable than a Chaos Orb from doing that. I did get some precursor tablets, some ritual tablets from doing ritual, obviously, so I guess there's that. But I like, in terms of just raw currency, no divines, no valuable stuff dropping from rituals, no omens dropping from rituals either, which I think that would be like a nice touch to just occasionally get thrown some omens from doing the ritual, even if it's not in the reward window. I think that would be nice, and that didn't happen either. So that would be maybe like my handful of complaints. So ultimately, I still think that even though this made like less per hour, I still thought it was like a good use of time. It was fun, learned a little bit, and I definitely enjoyed myself. All right, so I got into editing and I realized that I had glossed over something that I had written down in my notes in like big bold letters. Do not skip this. Make sure you mention this, and then completely did. I think a huge advantage of Ritual, and I think maybe part of the reason why it made less currency than Expedition, is you do not have to go through the irritating friction of bulk selling your logbooks on a third-party site or through the trade, in-game trade channel or anything. You can just walk over to Alva and, like, I got an Omen of Corruption here. I want to sell it, 191 Exalted Orbs. Let's go ahead and change that back up to 190. You know, press the button, and then there you go. Oh, wow, see, instant money. That is such a huge advantage in favor of Expedition, or of Ritual over Expedition, that you are able to just instantly sell the stuff that you farm through Ritual. So huge advantage there. I really like this a lot. And so I do think that quality of life is like very appealing for a lot of people and potentially worth the 20% hit that you would like lose as opposed to running Expedition, just to simply not have to deal with the irritating friction of trading logbooks to other players. So I think that pretty much covers it. It was, like I said, it was very fun. I do wish the tablets were cheaper. That is the biggest issue I have with Ritual right now. I think there is such a rush to farm King in the Mist to get Ingenuity belts, and that has caused the tablet price to just be super duper high. I would love to say that this is like a super low stakes gamble, but it isn't super low stakes because of the cost of the tablets making it be 15 exalts or so per map to run. You know, it's just not very cheap. You're paying at least 10 exalts per map to run this strategy that is, on average, more likely to give you literally nothing in a given map than anything else. But when it hits big. You can get 8, 10 divines in a single map from a King in the Mist key or an Omen of Whittling, and that is pretty awesome. So I'll wrap up by saying I enjoy Ritual in PoE 2 a lot more than I do in PoE 1, and I think it's because it is so much quicker. It really is a fast strategy, and, you know, whether it's quickly losing you money or quickly gaining you money, either way, it is pretty fast. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it. We are getting pretty close to 20,000 subscribers. I can smell it, so, you know, any day now, I'm sure of it. And if you want to support us even further, consider becoming a channel member. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching, and have fun running Ritual. Bye.